If you're a worker in Nigeria today, especially in the oil and gas sector, the decisions being made about pensions right now will directly determine the kind of life you retire into. A very good evening and welcome to TUC Half Hour, the program dedicated to shaping labor conversations across the country, brought to you by the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria under the leadership of Comrade Engineer Festus Osifo. I am your host, Judith Trust. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Tonight, we take you to Abuja, where PENGASSAN held a high-level summit on the future of pension administration in the oil and gas sector, a sector long regarded as the backbone of Nigeria's pension structure. At the summit, PENGASSAN President Comrade Festus Osifo raised concerns about growing pension gaps, outdated actuarial assumptions, and a widening disparity between retirees' benefits and today's economic realities. Stakeholders from PENCOM, CPFAs, IOCs, and pensioners themselves also highlighted the urgent reforms needed to sustain pension funds and restore dignity in retirement. Stay with us as we unpack the key issues, commitments, and action points that emerge from this crucial industry summit. TUC Half Hour continues right after the break.
No stopping. Aluta. Blessing to one. Blessings to all.
The Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, has held a high-level pension summit in Abuja to examine the widening gaps in closed pension fund administration across the oil and gas sector and chart a sustainable path for the welfare of retirees. Declaring the summit open, President of PENGASSAN, Comrade Engineer Festus Osifo, welcomed past union leaders, representatives of PENCOM, HR heads of international oil companies, and other industry stakeholders.
Because we've recognized over time...
Engineer Osifo highlighted a growing lacuna in the processing of pension benefits for retired workers. He noted that while pension funds continue to grow within CPFAs, the actual pension received by retirees in many organizations has remained stagnant and largely dependent on management's discretion. He urged PENCOM to review assumptions used by companies in determining life expectancy and benefits payouts, warning that these gaps have left many retirees unable to survive on their pensions. He stressed that PENGASSAN will intensify advocacy to ensure fairness, dignity, and sustainability for pensioners, adding that we all will one day be in their position.
We actually decided to take up these issues that is bordering on closed pension fund administration in Nigeria, because the reason it's very clear that, for those that didn't really know, so in 2004, we had the pension reform systems in Nigeria. So when that pension reform happened, we had a system whereby some companies, they started the pension fund administrator, right, the PFAs. Some of us do the contributory pension scheme, while others, there were some exemptions given to some companies to be doing the closed pension fund system, what we call the defined benefit system. But over time, in 2014, there was also a new legislation that came that now stopped, new employees from 2014 from joining the defined benefit. That means even if you operate the defined benefit, the company like Chevron, the company like then ExxonMobil, now Esso, Seplat, Renaissance, Total Energies, NNPC, DPRO, and all that, even when you operate that closed pension fund system, so by 2014 there was a cap. So anybody that was employed into this organization from 2014, you could no longer join the defined benefit. You now need to be under the PFA. So over time, we have realized that there is some level of lacuna within this process and within the system, that people that retired several years ago under the defined benefit, their remuneration or rather their retirement benefit has somewhat be capped. Their retirement benefit does not, I mean, in some organizations, it doesn't move. It's always at management discretion. Some of the management over time may be magnanimous to add little thing to what the pensioners are earning. And we understand what inflation has done in Nigeria. We understand what devaluation has done to our remuneration. So imagine people that have retired 1990, imagine people that have retired maybe 2001, even 2010, as recent as 2010. So when they retire at that time, they will be going home with what they think it's okay in terms of the value of our currency. What, for example, we all know what 200,000 naira could buy for you in 2010, today truly it can no longer buy. So we have in one or two organizations a system whereby at the end of the year we have the pension, it grows every year due to a mechanism and a system that was put in place. But that's maybe like in 5 or 10% of where we have the closed pension funds. But in a lot of other organizations, up to 90%, it doesn't grow. So what that means is that you are at management discretion, or you are at the discretion of a sponsor, because it's actually the sponsor that is supposed to fund, to look at the gap within the fund and fund it. And we've also observed, the regulators we've also observed that there are some assumptions that are made when they are doing actuarial valuations. There are some assumptions that are made that at the end, okay, just for example, if you make some assumptions to say that the life expectancy, for example, it's let's say 76 in Nigeria, the funds that you need to put into, I mean, you could not assume that the fund is sufficient. But if you tweak that life expectancy from 76 to like 80, for example, you are going to have some gap. So I think we have observed that in one or two organizations, we have that lacuna whereby they determine what the life expectancy would be. If not just life expectancy alone, there are some others that border on some of the assumptions that are made. Those assumptions that are made, we have observed that it determines how the fund, the gap that will be in the fund. So I think that PENCOM should focus, much more on it to ensure that those gaps are closed, to ensure that the funds are truly sufficient to take care of the pensioners and those that will join them in the future. And also, I think too that PENCOM should also look at, because people that retired several years ago, their pension can no longer do anything for them. So we are going to come to you. We are going to make very serious advocacy on this across the companies that are operating CPFA, because we think that there are some gaps that are not being met 100%.
Delivering the first keynote address on behalf of the Director General of PENCOM, the head of Investment Supervision Department, Mr. Abdul Kadir Dalhatu, outlined the current landscape of closed pension funds in Nigeria. He noted that 4 licensed closed pension fund administrators currently operate in Nigeria, mostly linked to large corporations in oil and gas, telecoms, and banking. He said that while CPFAs have brought stability to pension administration, the sector still faces challenges with over-concentration in low-yield investments. PENCOM, he added, has adopted a risk-based supervision framework and is encouraging CPFAs to diversify investments, adopt ESG reporting, collaborate with PFAs, and partner with fintechs. He reaffirmed PENCOM's commitment to refining regulations in line with global best practices.
PENCOM has maintained rigorous oversight over the PFA structure to ensure prudential management and sustainability. And some of the key regulatory milestones that have happened in recent times include one, we have already set this the 2014 cutoff date for CPFA licenses, which prevented proliferation and ensured that only solvent, well-managed legacy schemes remain in operation. The Commission has adopted a risk-based approach to supervision, which emphasizes risk management, governance quality, and sustainability metrics in supervising CPFAs. The Commission has also issued the revised investment regulations this year to provide greater flexibility for pension funds, including CPFAs, to invest in alternative assets such as infrastructure, renewable energy, and private equity, subject to strict risk controls. Also, the Commission has pioneered and championed technology integration. There is ongoing deployment of the enhanced contributor registration system and data harmonization to ensure transparency and seamless pension administration in the country. CPFAs have the advantage of, so when you look at investment opportunities that are available in the CPFA space, CPFAs have advantage of conditional approval for offshore investments under PENCOM supervision with global custodians. This provides portfolio diversification and reduced country risk, protection against currency depreciation, and enhanced long-term fund value and sustainability. These opportunities must, however, be pursued responsibly and be guided by strong governance, risk management, and alignment with the nation's economic priorities. Pathways for sustainability and innovation and growth. For CPFAs to remain sustainable and relevant in modern pension landscape, several strategic pathways are essential. 1. Diversification and impactful investments. CPFAs must explore alternative, impact-driven asset classes such as green bonds, infrastructure funds, and real estate investment trusts that not only generate returns but also support national development goals.
In another keynote, the Managing Director of NNPC Pensions Limited, Mrs. Titilola Osanake, represented by Mr. Ezekiel Emmanuel, emphasized the need to channel pension funds into inflation-adjusted infrastructure projects to preserve long-term value.
In terms of addressing issues around retirees, if you look at the number, because you have a significant number on the other side of 12,000, even if you say you want to do just 100,000 naira increments, what you see is that you're going to do almost like 30% of your current wage bill. So the major way we've looked at, we did some increments in 2024, but basically to look at those people who are really on the lower cadre and how to bring them up. Because even while you're doing something like 100,000 for some people, it's still not impactful. So it's necessary that even if we're going to do any form of increment, it has to be looked at properly and ensure that you don't end up affecting the sustainability. In terms of market dynamics, we've seen interest rates are expected to go down. The good thing is we've come from high interest rates periods and we've been able to secure more into the long term. So some of the things we also say thank you to PENCOM is we're looking at opportunities around the repo and security lending, but it has to be done in such a way that you don't lose it. If you can do that, then there's additional income that can come in from the funds while you hold them. Apart from the coupon rates, you get additional income. So our goal really is because anything that has to do with remuneration basically comes from the sponsor, because as you know, if there's a gap, then the sponsor has to fill. So our goal is to try as much as possible to grow the assets as quickly as we can get, be less and less on the safer part, but look at how we can go for those assets with higher yields, but also look at how we can come together to mitigate the risk. And I believe that those things are quite doable.
The third keynote by Managing Director of Total Energy CPFA, represented by Mr. Olawale Olasoji, focused on future-proofing closed pension funds. He outlined 3 priorities, which include ensuring adequacy of funding, addressing frequent currency devaluation, and maintaining continuous risk management, especially around key risk assets essential to pension sustainability.
One of the things that have distinguished developed countries from developing ones is the kind of oversight they have put in place. And we appreciate what PENCOM has been doing, and we want you to continue to do more to ensure that people don't do what they want, they do what they need to do, and they do what is right. Number two thing is the adequacy of funding. The promise of pension alone is not enough. It is enough that what is in the books is adequate. Like has been said, sponsors continue to contribute, but what they contribute, is it enough? Is it adequate? Mr. President alluded to that earlier on about the possibility of tweaking actuarial valuations. It's not as easy as you said it, like PENCOM said, but the possibility, is there, particularly when it's managed by humans. However, another thing to look at in that space would be the frequency of the valuation. In a hyperinflationary environment where numbers are constantly changing, imagine a few years ago up till now. The last few months, maybe like 6 months, 1 year, our FX rate has been quite stable. But before that, you remember you could wake up in the morning, it was 900, and by evening it was 1.4. And within that kind of space, what you did 3 months ago that was adequate today may no longer be adequate. And so we need to proactively respond to such dynamics in the macroeconomic variables. We need to ensure that we don't just do what we wrote down 5 years ago, but that we are writing down continually what matches the current environment.
Retiree representatives from NNPC, ExxonMobil, Total Energies, Ajipin Owando, and Chevron also presented papers highlighting challenges faced by pensioners under the closed pension fund system.
The pension is miserable at my end in Chevron. Well, maybe slightly better than my Ando Ajib guy.
A panel discussion followed on the state of CPFAs and strategies for sustainable growth. Panelists included PENCOM's representative, Total Energies EGM People and Talent Management, the Chevron Pensioners representative, the NNPC Pension Fund representative, and former PENGASSAN president, Dr. Brown Ogwefun.
You have to look at how do we bring in those people that are on the lower level to a particular level.
Stakeholders engaged panelists on regulatory reforms, pension adequacy, harmonization of benefits, and the future of CPFAs amid economic uncertainties.
For us in our CPFA, we do have an annual review for the compensation package of the direct hires of our pension fund.
Summarizing action points, PENGASSAN President Engineer Festus Osifo emphasized that NNPC must fully fund its pension scheme in line with CPFA licensing conditions, stressing that employee contributions should not continue under the current structure. He insisted that pension administration is serious business, urging HR directors to treat pension issues objectively, knowing that they too would one day retire. He called for proper documentation of processes, transparency in management's decisions, and a renewed commitment to ensuring retirees live with dignity.
I know and I believe that NNPC as a company can fund that pension fund. Yes, from the deep knowledge, not just peripheral knowledge. From the deep knowledge we have about NNPC, the employee does not have any business to contribute to the CPFA. Group chairman, that was an aberration. We know it was some of our people that did it then, but it's not correct. They always come to us and they tell us, oh, the fund, it will get to saturation. Let the sponsors fund it. It's their responsibility. Because that was the condition with which PENCOM gave them license. So they cannot now be telling us to come and be contributing from our upfront to put into that fund. It is wrong. And we have to stop that immediately. Then, branches, the reasons you are represented, why will NNPC at a time be having 100 billion naira shortfall? It is wrong. What were we doing as PENGASSAN in NNPC? The group chairman, the group secretary, the group vice chairman, they are in the board of a pension fund. So you will sit down in the board and be drinking tea. and you allow your fund to be shortchanged, then tomorrow, because when they fund it every year, the funding gap will be closed. It will get to 100 billion. But when you leave it for 5, 10, 15 years, you will not have the wide gap. So what were we doing? So we must take that. In fact, the fact that we are represented on the board is not to be going to training in Kenya, in US, in California. No. We are on the board to ensure that what is right is done.
Special plaques were presented to speakers and invited guests.
Congratulations.
In a sidebar interview, Engineer Sifo reiterated the relevance of the summit in strengthening pension systems, protecting the rights of workers, and safeguarding the future of retirees in the oil and gas sector.
When you say closed pension fund, in 2004, the Pension Reform Act took place that provided for contributory pension scheme. So in the old scheme, the employer contributes 7.5%. The employees contribute 7.5%, making 15%. But in 2014, it was now employer 10% and the employees 8%. But in that 2004, some organizations were exempted. And 90% of these organizations, they were in the oil and gas industry. So the employees, they don't contribute to the fund. It is only the employers that guarantee the pension of the employees. So that is why it's closed. It's closed because the employees are not contributing. It's the employers that contribute. So there were conversations between the companies and PENCOM in the past, and conversations between PENGASSAN and the company as well, to say that you are oil and gas companies and you can shoulder this burden, and the companies accepted. So they now opened what they call a closed pension fund administrator. So that closed pension fund administrator is relatively different from the company, but the fund is guaranteed by the company. So every year they carry out what we call actuarial valuations to look at the gaps in the fund. And the sponsors, that is the company, they will pay the money into the CPFAs. So the money that is being paid is kept in what we call the custodians. So the custodians, I think there are very few. Zenith Custodian is one of them. So the money is paid there while the CPFA carry out the administration. So it's something that is extremely secure. So in the oil and gas industry, it's a flagship. But we have observed that in some of these CPFAs, they don't actually, so people that have retired several years ago, their pensions are relatively small because we've had inflations, we've had devaluations. So we are holding this summit today in order to be able to appraise it. We look at which of the CPFAs, where do we have the best practices? You heard what the Total Energies just said, that as PENGASSAN negotiate, a good portion outside the appraisal component, a larger portion of it will go to the retirees. So what that means is that if you negotiate, let's assume 60%, and let's say 10% is for appraisal, 50% is for general increase. That 50%, for example, will go to the retirees. So that is what happens in Total Energies CPFA today. But if you look at the other CPFAs, the retirees are at the mercy of the management. So most of these management, they are not really responsive. In fact, the CPFA growth, the CPFA is growing above inflation in some cases, but they don't pay the such difference to the retirees. So you have people that have retired like 20 years ago who were earning, let's say, 100,000 naira then. 20 years ago, 100,000 naira then was valuable. But today, they are earning maybe 120, 130,000 naira. But if such person was in Total Energies with the negotiation that take place every year, that 100,000 naira 20 years ago would become maybe like 3 million naira today. So you see the difference. So in Total Energies, we have best practices there, but in this other side, there is none. So that is why we have brought everybody together in one room.
Closing the event, PENGASSAN General Secretary Comrade Lumumba Okubawa delivered a vote of thanks, appreciating the president, NEC members and guests, and encouraging workers to prepare early and collectively for a secure retirement.
As conversations on pension reforms intensify, PENGASSAN's push for stronger governance, fairer benefits, and sustainable fund management remains central to securing the future of workers across the oil and gas industry. That brings us to the end of this week's edition of TUC Half Hour. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to watch replays or share your thoughts, follow TUC Half Hour across all social media platforms displayed on your screen. Until next week, I am Judith Trust. God bless Nigerian workers.